All right, so I wanted to put together a video that talks about the settings that I have for iRacing based on my recent upgrade from a 4090 to a 5090 graphics card. So I'm running a 9800X3D with a 5090 graphics card on a Pimax Crystal at full native resolution. And I wanted to put together kind of what my settings were that makes it all work. So take a look. So let me go ahead and I'm going to pull up OpenXR Toolkit. Now the only thing I'm using with OpenXR Toolkit is just the reporting, really the FPS and the frame times is all that we're using here. So everything else is turned to off, and then there's no other settings that I've got in of any significance on here or anything like that. And then the overlay is set to advanced, so it shows me the frame timing. So starting at the top right here, this is the settings that I'm using. We're using the quad views or foveated MBP. That is performing really well. In fact, I would say it's a better image quality than with eye tracking and foveated rendering before. And then on the settings down here, there's a reason why we've got it kind of set up this way. I could run all of these settings to on, basically, but I don't. And the reason why is because some of it's just overhead, and then some of it's just different tracks are going to perform differently in different situations. And so sky and clouds low, because I don't know the difference between any of these. I think the impact is probably nothing. And again, in a dry situation, this could be to high and it really wouldn't matter. And then crowds, I have it set to low. I don't need anything more than just, have some crowds there, I guess, to fill it, from an immersion perspective. There's a little difference. If you go from low to medium, you get crowd ambient noises, and if you go to high, you get kind of the 3D stuff, but I don't really care about that stuff, so I just leave it to low. And then these are the settings that I have everywhere else. So draw, cars, and pits, because for me, I want to see them all, if I can, and we'll come back to that when we talk about oval racing here in a second. No changes in LOD as we go through the different frame drops. We're going to leave this alone for right now. There is some stuff you could do here that might help, but for me, I'm just going to leave those off. Frame rate and this stuff down here doesn't have anything to do with VR, so that doesn't matter. And then the biggest thing that we're seeing that's different is MSAA. Before, with my 4090, there was no way I could run MSAA at 4x, and now with the 5090 I can. So this right here is a big uplift in what you're getting in terms of that improvement, and it does make the image quality that much better in terms of just like distant jaggies and all that kind of stuff. So this one is a real big one. In the shadows and shadows on, this box right here, object self-shadowing, I don't really know exactly what that part does. I don't really see any real difference here. I mean, you can pull up on some tracks, you can see where it sort of shades in some of the interior of the track, but nothing that I would see driving. And so I leave that one unchecked because there is a performance hit on that. And then shadows on in general, that's always going to be on because that adds shadows across the track, and especially from like bridges and overpasses and stuff. So you really kind of need that on from an immersion perspective. And then I want to see the shadows on the car in the main view wherever possible. So that's important. Plus it gives you shadows inside of your cockpit as well, which adds to the immersions as well. So, and then ultra detail on the shutter quality, I haven't noticed really any difference between lowering that or not. So I'll leave it to ultra. And then the night shadow maps for night racing, basically this seems to work fine for me. All of this stuff can be on over here. 2-pass trees, high quality trees. The higher detail in the mirrors, not as important, but again, it doesn't have as much impact on the CPU, which is a big area of concern. I'll come back to that later. Virtual mirror FOV, used to run this at 85. Now I can run it at 120. The lower this number, the more headroom you'll get on your GPU as well. But now I can run at 120, get a little bit more field of view in the back so that I can see cars a little bit more when they're alongside me. SSR is sort of irrelevant with MVP. So this doesn't matter what you set it as. As soon as you go to MVP, it's the same regardless of whether this SSR was on high or always. It doesn't really matter. MVP, this is really not working. So we'll just leave it to off for right now. Sharpening on because I like the sharpening with the simple filter. HDR because I like the lens flare and the glowing taillights as well. Now I'll go back to this part right here, this MSAA and the simple. The reason why this is set to simple is because I can sharpen it with sharpening down here. And this is important because when we get into a rain situation, which I'll cover those a little bit later, I can uncheck this box, giving me a little bit more CPU headroom. If I wanted to change it from up here, I'd have to restart the sim. So the reason why some of these settings are in here is that I don't have to, if I jump into a race and I think it's going to rain, then I'll uncheck certain boxes on here to make sure that I have enough to maintain a 90 frames per second frame rate without having to restart. So that's partly why these are set the way that they are. Anything else and I'd have to change it, jump out of the sim, jump back into the sim, and I don't want to do that. So that's why it's set to this way. So anyway, that's the settings on here. And now we're going to go ahead and jump into the test session at Mugello, and I'll show you kind of what the performance is as we get going. Okay, so what we're doing now is just a quick test here at Mugello. Same conditions we've been talking about before, just to kind of get an idea of the headroom that you have and variations between the tracks. So you can see here start of the grid, and you can see here at Mugello everything on more or less. And you can see kind of where we have 60 and 17% overhead at a track like Mugello with this many cars, but we're still okay here. But this is kind of where I use this, kind of go, hey, if we can get through Mugello, then I know my settings are pretty solid in terms of anything else that we would do in a condition. We're going to go through and show you what and why we did this. I'm going to go back through the graphics settings before the race starts. What I would do to hopefully get this to work is I'm going to turn off the main view dynamic objects here. We're going to turn off sharpening. We're going to draw minimum cars. We're going to draw minimum pits. And we're going to turn off the crowds altogether, though this probably doesn't really have anything to do with it, but more for immersion. And then we're going to leave the rest of these. We've unchecked those items, which means that we don't have to restart the entire sim. And we'll see if we can maintain the headroom here through the start of the race with moderate rain, with OBS, with everything else on. So you get through this, obviously it's a GPU headroom's dropping, maximum rain mess, more or less. Okay, so we're hanging on. Okay, as everybody kind of comes in. We're going to get some tickle points right here on this track, which is a couple of turns from now. But we're still hanging on when I turn off those settings to maintain the rain. And if we can get through a little bit here, we can get to the one turn, probably two turns on the track here that it just struggles with for whatever reason, which is the turn coming up here. Watch that that dip in the CPU headroom. It'll come down here coming out of this turn. I think everybody that's done this kind of knows, for whatever reason, you get frame drop right here, or pushes it just right to or right past the boundary. Yep, there it goes. But I mean, honestly, this is a pretty rough situation here. So again, not a lot you can do with that. A little lens flare reflection there with HDR off of the thing, or off of the track. And again, the only other thing you'll probably get, or I consistently get here, is the frame drop going onto the straightaway again. Typically is a thing, right? So now remember too, this is with OBS recording at a pretty high frame rate and sample rate. So to get more of just a test, so if that was off, probably would be able to get pretty close with it. But, and again, if it can handle it here, other tracks that would be raining, again, this is with a 30 card field, it will probably be okay anyplace else. So we'll get one more frame drop here, heading out into the track, and right about here, it's gonna lose it. It's crap. There it is. Drops. and then recovers, and then we're in pretty good shape for the rest of the race. So here, again, going down the straights, 21% overhead, and I think I can live with that with minimal button presses. And again, we're back on through. And because we're getting more cars in the mirror, doesn't have to draw as many cars up front, which helps everywhere. So with each lap, you know, you kind of should get a little bit better. Also, with moderate rain is more impactful than light rain or regular rain. So that's also why we tested with this as well here. So, yep, that's what that looks like. Okay, so we're going to jump into this now, Daytona race, and we're going to see how or what the impact is on the...
we do not have to worry about
So
gas.
here we're coming down the straight, and we'll get green.
Flag.
And you can see coming around the bend right here, the kink is really the
Inside,
thing.
inside.
Just past the kink right here is where you're going to have the biggest headroom. Their performance impact is what you're going to have. So you get it there, and then you're also going to get, you'll see it really kind of climb down on the CPU availability or headroom right here. 16%, 13, 10, 6, 7, right? So you're right on the margins right here with the settings that we have right now. And again, OBS is zapping some of that, of course. And then here's where the challenge is going to become. So everything's good,
Still there at your door.
but we're going to struggle coming in front of the grandstands here, especially past the kink. And you'll see this here probably. We're going to be really close, if not drop below it. So right here, yeah, you see where we kind of lost a couple of frames. Recovered a little bit here, so we're okay again. But now look at what my frame counter is. We're right on the margins there, of just under 10%, sitting at 8%, 4%, and you know, again, we're sort of in this situation barely hanging on with OBS running, right? So now if I turn off OBS, obviously this experience will be. I'll stay within the margins, and we should be okay, again, with a 30-car field. All right, so now here's our test with Bristol. Same situation as before, 30 cars, drawing it in exactly the same way as what we were doing at Daytona. And again, OBS is recording and running and all of that. So we'll see what happens here as we kind of go a couple laps. I can't remember how to go anywhere close to good speed here. But again, we'll try to just sort of keep in the pack here for just a lap or two.
Still there at your door inside. Door clear if you need it. Clear if you need it.
Oh yeah.
23.293. Inside, inside. Clear, clear, clear.
But again, you can see where you know, it's doing fine, you know, in terms of just the frame timings. You can see that off to the left there where we've got
the fastest car on the track. 15.294.
Plenty.
Inside 16.108. Hell yeah, good lap. Clear, clear. 16.113.
Yeah, so you know, it feels decent. Oh,
inside.
Okay. Well, that's
still inside. Clear.
Record this before they've even said to go.
How about pace cars off? Be ready.
Yeah, you can tell where this would be a struggle.
Green flag.
So we'll see.
Inside. Still there. Still there.
All right.
Still inside. Inside is clear. Inside.
Alright, so I guess we're okay.
Still inside.
Not sure why it
Clear,
starts
clear.
off
Working the bottom.
so much more headroom. And then once the
Still there.
green flag goes, it seems to be
15.979. Still
fine with plenty of
inside.
overhead. But
Still there.
yeah, so anyway, you get
In
an
and out.
idea of
Outside on.
All right, so in conclusion, what do we have here? Well, here's the deal. Nice uplift with going from a 4090 to a 5090. We're allowed to have 4x super sampling. I can have HDR on. I can run 30 cars. I can run OBS in most of the situations all at the same time, and it runs pretty good. Now, was it worth the cost to upgrade it? Probably not, to be honest, but these are some of the things that you can do with it and what you can expect on multi-class road racing and some oval racing, and what some of the things are that you're going to see. So I'm sure there's tons of things you can change on there as well, and there's people that'll have different things around what's most important to them, like I don't want to have this on, you can do this, you can do that. But this is how I've kind of set it up initially, to give people just kind of the basics around how it all kind of works together when you have this kind of stuff working together. So anyway, hope you enjoyed. If you have any questions, let me know. Talk to you guys later.